already August, y'all. When did that happen? Today I'm going to be doing my July wrap up and my August TBR. I read 8 books in the month of July, and I also participated in BOOKTUBE-a-thon. So a lot of these books are going to be ones I read during BOOKTUBE-a-thon. The first book I read in July was Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. I actually listened to most of this during June, and I finished it in the first couple of days of July. But I listened to this one on audiobook, and oh my gosh, I loved this book. It was so sweet and just so good, and I think this has become one of my new favorite classics. I used to love the Anne of Green Gables movie whenever I was a kid, and I just really love this. I want to watch the Netflix show at some point. I haven't honestly heard a lot about it, so I don't know if it's any good or not, but I am very curious to watch it. And if you do want to read this, I do highly recommend the audiobook, because the audiobook was fantastic. The audiobook's narrated by Kate Burton, I think her name is. For those of you that are Grey's Anatomy fans, she plays Ellis Grey, or Scandal fans, she plays the woman who used to be vice president on that show. I can't think of her name, it's escaping me, but that lady, she's pretty awesome. She reads this audiobook and she does an amazing job. But I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. And for those of you wondering, this is the Puffin and Bloom edition. Next, I actually listened to another audiobook because at this point I was doing my road trip that I did at the beginning of the month, and that was Library of Souls by Ransom Riggs, which is the 3rd book in the Miss Peregrine's Peculiar Children series, or I guess trilogy. I can't say a whole lot about this book because it's the 3rd one, but I really liked it. I liked it more than Hollow City, but the first book is still my favorite. But I thought it was a pretty solid finale. I felt like there were some bits and pieces to the story that was a little bit on the cheesier side. And most of that kind of comes from the main villain. Like, some of the things he said, I just was like, really? That's what you're going with here? But I also thought that it really wrapped up the series well, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I finally read A Quart of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This took up most of my month, which is why I didn't read more books this month. Because this is so dang long. It's like 700 pages, but it's the 3rd book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and it is the last book to this storyline. I actually really enjoyed this. A lot of people were making it sound like they weren't really liking it that much, but I really enjoyed it. I don't think I liked it as much as A Court of Mist and Fury, but it's still pretty close. I will say that I did have some issues with this book. There is a line towards the beginning that is considered very ace-phobic. I don't remember what page it's on, and I'm not super happy with the way that a certain character was portrayed, and I don't really know how to go into it without getting spoilery, but I will just say, because those of you that have read this will know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about, you can tell that she tried to make some elements to this book more diverse, but it wasn't necessarily done well. I'll put it that way. But as far as the plot goes, I thought it was excellent. It was a great finale. All of the battle scenes and the war stuff was just done so well. I was so into it, and I cried. I cried in this book. And I don't cry in books very often anymore, but this book did make me cry kind of towards the end, and you probably know which part I'm talking about. But I ended up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Second Chance Summer by Morgan Matson, and I enjoyed this book, but I think this is my least favorite Morgan Matson book that I read so far. I've read all 3 of them except for Amy and Roger, and I haven't read any of her Katie Finn books. Not to say that this book was bad, it was just my least favorite. I kind of had a hard time getting into it, and there were just parts of it that felt kind of young for me personally, but that's just like a personal thing because I'm a 23-year-old reading YA, and every now and then you're going to come across one that reads a little young, but I liked the story, and I liked the relationships. I liked the focus on family in this one. This one was very sad. I did cry. Again, 2 books got me this month. It's kind of weird. I still would definitely recommend this book. I really like Morgan Matson as an author, and really just as a person. She seems awesome. I mean, I have met her once, and she was awesome, but she seems like a cool person. But I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars, and this is about, I don't want to give away too much about it, but it's definitely a summer contemporary story. The focus on in this one is definitely more on family because the main character's dad has cancer, but of course it's a Morgan Matson book, so there is a romance, but I thought that was done really well, and it didn't really overshadow the main storyline, if that makes sense. but I enjoyed this one. Like I said, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then the next 4 books I read for BookTubeathon. So I started off BookTubeathon with How to Make a Wish by Ashley Herring Blake. And this is another YA contemporary about a bisexual main character. She has a mom who's just a little troubled. I really appreciated the main character Grace in this book. I just thought that she was really well written with everything that was going on in her life. It felt to me like it was written very honestly. I don't know for sure if that was. I know as far as the bisexual representation goes, that is an own voices aspect. I'm not sure about some of the other things in here. It read very honest, and I really appreciated that. I just really fell in love with the story and the characters, and I loved this book. This is probably one of my top books of the year. I just really loved it. It really resonated with me for some reason, and it was my favorite book I read during BookTubeathon for sure. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, obviously, and I highly recommend this book. Next, I read Vengeance Road by Erin Bowman, and this is a YA Western, which I thought was interesting. It's about this girl named Kate who's, she discovers her father was murdered. She finds out who did it, and then she goes on a quest for revenge. And this story was pretty cool. I've never read a Western before. Western like type things aren't really my thing, but I did enjoy this story a lot. It had every kind of element that I would expect out of a Western, and I really loved the main character, Kate. She was such a badass. So I enjoyed this story for sure. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite book in the world or anything, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Once Upon a Time Out of the Past by Kalinda Marie Vasquez, and this is a graphic novel. It has 4 different stories in it. It has stories about Belle and Rumpelstiltskin, Captain Hook, the Mad Hatter, and the Eagle Queen, and I really liked this. This was a lot of fun. It was just kind of a little glimpse into some other stories that we really haven't gotten in the show. There's 2 Once Upon a Time graphic novels out right now, and I've read the other one. I definitely liked this one a whole lot more. This one just read a lot more like what you would expect from the TV show. I think the other one didn't do as good a job of that. So I really enjoyed this. I really missed Once Upon a Time, so it was fun to just kind of immerse myself in this for a little while, and really my only complaint is that I wish that it was longer. So I ended up giving this one a 5 out of 5 stars, and if you like Once Upon a Time, definitely pick this up. And the last book that I finished for BookTubeathon and the month of July was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling, and I read the illustrated edition this time because I hadn't read the illustrated edition of the Chamber of Secrets yet. Like I said before, I am reading one Harry Potter book every month until the end of the year, and from the month I started, I will be reading the last book the last month of the year, so that way I'll have reread the entire series by the end of the year. Obviously, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars because I'm Harry Potter trash, but I kind of forgot how much fun the Chamber of Secrets was, and I really loved seeing how Jim Kay illustrated this world for this story, and I'm really just loving these illustrated editions. I can't wait until all of them are out, even though I know it's going to take forever, but it's just been a lot of fun. If you haven't picked up the 2 illustrated books yet, I definitely suggest you do, and the 3rd one comes out in October. You know, I loved it, obviously. And that's it for my July wrap-up. Now, in the month of August, I am participating in the Tome Topple Readathon, which is a readathon where you read books over 500 pages, and it's a 2-week-long readathon, so that takes up most of my reading month, at least, you know, half of it, and I've already posted my TBR for Tome Topple, so I'm going to link that in the description, so I'm not putting a whole lot of extra stuff on my TBR for that month. I am in the middle of 3 books right now, and then I only have a couple of other ones that I'm going to add to my TBR. If I'm able to read more than that, that's great, but I don't want to put too much pressure on myself and put a bunch of books on my TBR I'm not going to get to. So first off, I'm currently in the middle of The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. I originally started this one on audio, but then at the beginning of the month I got really addicted to Hamilton, and I haven't been able to stop listening to it. So I kind of abandoned the audiobook because I've been listening to that in my car on the way to work instead of the audiobook, and then it was due at the library. But I got to the halfway point, and I've just decided that I'm going to finish this one in the physical format. But this is the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series. I really am enjoying it so far. I'm in the middle of 3 books, so it's going to take me a while before I finish this one, especially since Tome Topple starts on the 4th. I probably won't finish this before then, but I will finish it as soon as I possibly can. I'm also in the middle of Because You Love to Hate Me, which is an anthology edited by Amory, and this is the anthology that the booktubers collaborated with authors on. I'm sure you've heard of it at this point because we're on booktube and it involves booktubers. I've only read the first, I think, 4 or 5 stories. I'm about a third of the way into it. So far, I kind of a little mixed. There's a couple of stories that I really enjoyed, some of them that I just kind of thought were but since I'm not very far into it, I'm kind of holding off judgment. And since it's a short story collection, I don't have to be in as big a hurry to finish this because I'm not in the middle of the story right now. I know I won't finish this before Tome Topple's over. This is going to be a priority after the Tome Topple readathon. I think it ends on the 17th. So this will get read after that. And the last book that I'm in the middle of, I started during Booktubeathon and I just didn't finish it. I'm almost done with it, and that's When Dimple Met Rishi by Sendai Menon. I'm really enjoying this book. I've got like 70 something pages left, I think. I'm probably honestly going to finish it tonight, maybe tomorrow. I just couldn't finish it during the month of July, even though I tried really hard. But I'm really loving this book so far. I think it's definitely worth all the hype it's been getting, and I can't wait to see how it ends. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot of other books on my TBR for the month. Obviously, since I'm doing a Harry Potter book a month, I have Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban on my TBR for the month because this is the 3rd book. And so I need to read this month, which I'm really looking forward to. Again, I will read it after Tome Topple's over, but I'm really excited to get to this one because it's been a while since I've read The Prisoner of Azkaban. And the last book on my TBR for the month might be a surprise. That book is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. So here's why. Because I've talked about on my channel before, I don't really like these books. But I owned them a long time ago, and then I ended up giving them to my mom. So she had them. I didn't have them on my shelves anymore. And then the last few months, she gave them a reread, decided that she didn't want them anymore. So she gave them back to me. And only because I haven't read these books since I was 14 years old. And I kind of just want to read them once with an adult mindset to see just how I process things versus when I read them before. Because when I read them for the first time when I was 14, I really liked them. Really until Breaking Dawn came out, and I didn't like that book. And I was kind of influenced from other people I knew not to like Twilight, so I want to read the books just one more time with an adult mindset, and then I'm probably going to get rid of them because I have so many other books on my shelves that I would rather put in that space. But in order to get rid of them, I need to read them first. So I'm going to start my reread in the month of August with Twilight. I know I read this really quickly back in the day, I believe, so I don't think it's going to be too much pressure to add this to my TBR for the month, even though it's already pretty full. Let me know down in the comments how many books you read in July, and that will be it for this video, and I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye.